Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
Ooh, is it time?
It is time.
All right, there's some
It
good
is
stuff
time.
in here today. I'm kind of
Yes.
excited about it.
I'm glad you liked it.
You're
I did
welcome.
my best.
You always do. You always come through.
Cooking with the brain cells. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Gabe Rubio is back with the Fighting Irish after taking a leave of absence from the team during the spring.
It's fantastic for a multitude of reasons. Number one, he took care of whatever it was that took him away from Notre Dame. I don't know what that was, but he took care of it, so good on him. And from a football standpoint, it just adds that much more depth to the interior defensive line, which I love that as well. So it's awesome that Gabe Rubio is back.
Absolutely agree on all counts. And I mean, honestly, when you hear that a guy is taking a leave of absence from the team during spring practice, it's like, okay. I mean, you've got and I realize people panic about transfer portal and stuff like that, but there was every reason to believe that he was not going to be back. And I think that he can really be I was about to say nice addition. He was already on the team, so he's not a nice addition, but just another really good piece for this team going forward, because they were better against the run when Gabriel Rubio was part of that run defense. He was a big part of that. He was very strong, very physical up the middle. And so from Notre Dame's perspective, it's nothing but good to have Gabriel Rubio on the team. So glad to see him back as well.
Absolutely agree. There's no negative to it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a negative to whoever the 86th or 87th person on scholarship is, but it's not a negative for him or the team.
No. Yeah. I mean, and that is still a thing. It's going
to
be really interesting to see exactly where that goes, because they still do have to trim it by a couple of spots still.
Right. So. And they will. Everybody's all got their panties in a bunch about the roster. It always works out. It'll be fine. It'll be fine, everybody. Take a breath.
So Marcus Freeman recently said, when opposing defenses loaded the box to take away Notre Dame's running game last season, quote, "We didn't always make them pay," end quote, by throwing the football. Scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you the Irish can and will make teams pay if it happens this year?
As long as Riley Leonard is the quarterback, I think they will absolutely make teams pay. And I'll leave it at that. So it's a 10 for me. I think they have the right coordinator who will take advantage of matchups and, hats in the box and all of those different things. I think he will see that. He will adapt to it, and he will be successful. And as long as he has the guys that he needs to be making those plays, i.e. starting quarterback and the starting wide receivers that we think are all going to be there helping out, and you're going to be just fine. So it's a high number for me.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons they weren't able to it is a little head scratching that you have a quarterback with Sam Hartman's experience and you weren't able to do that sometime, because you expect that he's going to be able to do some things at the line of scrimmage to put them in better
and
positions.
He didn't. That's the thing. And everybody wants to blame the offensive coordinator, and that's not where my blame goes. Now, he's still the offensive coordinator and the buck stops with him. I get that. But for whatever reason, Sam was not going through his reads the way he should have gone through his reads the second half of the season. And so they weren't making teams pay. And to his credit, in my opinion, the offensive coordinator was like, well, we got to take the ball out of this guy's hands because he's not doing what he needs to do with the football and getting it where it needs to go. So we're going to run the ball and take our chances. And they ended up, banging their head against the wall, it felt like at times. But the quarterback wasn't executing the game plan. That's the problem.
Right.
For a myriad of reasons, he was not executing the game plan. And so that's why I said, as long as Riley Leonard's the quarterback, I think they will be fine.
And between Riley Leonard being the quarterback, between the receivers he's going to have this year that Sam Hartman also didn't have at his disposal last year, I think that was part of the piece.
Yeah.
And I also wonder how much this helmet communication thing can come into play, because when we talked to Mike Denbrock about it in the spring, he talked about how, because you have until the play clock hits 15 seconds that you can communicate. So that's almost 30 seconds that you've got. It comes on when the play clock starts. It shuts off at 15 seconds. So you've got 25 seconds there.
That's a long time.
Yeah, where with the quarterback, and like Mike Denbrock was saying, you can say, hey, kind of keep an eye on this. Look at this. What are you seeing? You know, those kind of things. Now, obviously, the quarterback can't talk back, but it's like he can give them little reminders as they go to the line of scrimmage and talk about some of that stuff. And I think that can potentially be an advantage for Notre Dame as well, between a veteran OC and a veteran quarterback.
I think the biggest challenge, and I'll speak from a coach's perspective on this. I think the biggest challenge is that he will have to be careful how much coaching he's putting into the ear of the quarterback.
Right. You don't want to
have to limit yourself.
You don't want to overcomplicate.
Yes.
Right.
And that's going to be a challenge because you know what you're seeing as a coach and all of that stuff, and you want to disseminate that information to the quarterback, and you want him to disseminate that information to the rest of the team. But you got to be real careful how much information. It can't be information overload, right? And then it cuts off mid-sentence,
Right.
So that's going to be a real kind of a feeling out process, I think, for coaches around the country, not just at Notre Dame.
Right. And now a couple of different things, because Michael's talking about, Hartman was not in a quarterback-friendly offense. It was Reese's scan offense, no audibles. I think
that's not true. That is not. There was audibles. There were all of those things.
There were audibles. It was just a question of, did he make the audibles when he needed to make the audibles? Now, what I was going to say, in terms of the difference in offense is, and again, this is something we've touched on quite a bit, the difference in that extra tight end not being out there on the field is naturally going to open up the field to let them do a multitude of things between the pass game and the run game. And so it's like, okay, you want to stack the box. Well, we've got 11 personnel or we've got 10 personnel. So now you've got to deal with that. And if you can't make them pay it when they're trying to load the box, when you've got lighter personnel out there on the field, it's obviously you that have the problems as an offense, So
Absolutely.
I think that's going to help take care of some of that stuff as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, look, I'm not saying that Jared Parker was the be all end all, best offensive coordinator in the country. I'm not saying that, but Sam Hartman had options.
Sam Hartman was a sixth-year quarterback.
He was not using the options that he was given. Yes. And did he audible very much? No. That wasn't because the offensive coordinator wouldn't allow him to do it. I want to make that very clear, right? And there were times where he wasn't going through his progressions. He was forcing the ball to the first read. Okay? That you can talk about wide receiver injuries. You can talk about all these different things. There were guys running open, regardless of whether the problem is he didn't trust those receivers for whatever reason. Yeah. We don't need to get into all of that.
And I mean, I've got to disagree on this with Michael as well. He says you can't attack in the scan offense. I mean,
100% can,
because the scan offense is not necessarily a system. It's just a mode of, how you're relaying plays in from the line of scrimmage. And there are plenty of college offenses who stand at the line of scrimmage and let the offensive coordinator make calls from the sideline. That's what the scan offense is. They're literally standing up at the line of scrimmage and then scanning and then making their calls. It obviously slows things down, but it's like the scan offense is not the offense. It's the system that you're going about getting the plays in and making the checks that are coming from the press box or the sideline to the quarterback.
The definition of an attacking offense isn't going fast. That's not the definition of an attacking offense.
Right.
The attacking offense is what the play is. It's not like going no huddle or hurry or whatever. That's not an attacking offense. That's just going fast. There are plenty of hurry up offenses. Just run the ball. That's not attacking. So I disagree on the definition of attack. You can attack in the
he's saying
offense.
The sidelines reading at Tommy Rees in the booth. Now, if you want to say that Tommy Rees was part of the problem, I'm not going to disagree with you.
That's fine. And that's fine. Yeah. But Tommy Rees wasn't Sam Hartman's quarterback.
Right.
Coach.
Offensive coordinator. It was Jared Parker last year.
Neither one of those things.
Now, were they largely running the same thing? Yeah, but we don't have to get caught up.
Right.
Like stuck in that. The bottom line is there's a new offensive coordinator and a new quarterback, and we expect it to look completely different this year.
Absolutely.
So we were talking earlier this week about potential Irish breakout players for the season, and we talked about this guy a little bit earlier. Do you buy or sell Jordan Botelho as a breakout candidate?
You worded this question very interesting.
I was wondering how you would receive this because I thought about it after I worded it. I'm like, do I change the wording? Do I leave it? So give me your interpretation.
Yes. So my interpretation of this question is he a candidate? I'll buy that he's a candidate. Okay. He's absolutely a candidate because he has not broken out yet. I do not think he will break out. That's my opinion. And
those are the two different ways you could interpret this.
Exactly.
And that's exactly how I feel. Like, I feel like he is a candidate because he hasn't broken out yet. We're still waiting for him to break out. So he is a candidate. But is it finally going to click? It just seems and feels like we've been waiting too long. I think he'll be a solid player, but I don't think we're going to see a completely different Botelho this year.
Yes, I completely agree with that. He's a candidate. I think he's going to get passed up. I mean, he's got all the talent in the world. He's just so inconsistent. I can't. This is perfect. NH says I want to buy, but I'm selling. And that's kind of where I'm at. I would love to buy it because that means that's how much better the Notre Dame defense is going to be. But I can't do it.
In DK's world, you have solved the problem. Maybe we've both solved the problem. He's going to get 15 sacks now.
I have to underestimate everybody on the team, and then they'll be good to go.
Yes. So we are going to, yesterday we predicted Michigan's record for the season. We're going to do Texas today. Longhorns have an over-under win total of 10.5 this season. So let's go through the schedule. They open at home against Colorado State.
W.
No reason to believe that they would lose that one.
I would hope not.
Yes. They go to Michigan. And this is actually an interesting, I didn't realize Texas and Michigan were playing until I saw Michigan's schedule yesterday. But they go to Michigan week 2.
It's a bit of a trap game, obviously. But I don't think Michigan is the Michigan of last year for a myriad of reasons. And I will take Texas in this one.
Completely agree. Jesse and I both had Texas with a win on this yesterday when we did Michigan's schedule. And, Texas has everything that you need coming back. They lose some pieces, whereas Michigan down a head coach, down a quarterback, down a starting, all these different questions.
The team is turned over almost 50% from what it was last year. So
exactly. So
that's going to be
2-0 then for Texas, going back home to play UT San Antonio.
Before I give you my prediction on the UT San Antonio game, what did you guys come up with for the Michigan record? Were you guys?
We thought we had 9-3.
Okay.
Their over/under was 9.5. We had them 9-3.
Okay.
With a chance. Jesse brought up a good point with all the new that they're facing, especially a first-time head coach. We saw room for even a slip up that maybe they end up 8-4.
Yeah, I totally could see that for sure. I don't. I'm never all in on Michigan, but I could definitely see that as well. They're not going to have the year that Michigan fans want, but Michigan fans won't care because they're still riding that national championship. So
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
They've got a pretty favorable schedule though, actually, too. I think they play their first 5 games at home or something.
Of course they do.
Like that.
Yeah. Of course they do. It's the Alabama North. Anyway, UT San Antonio, I'm going to give the dub to Texas on that one.
Yeah, me too. I don't think I think it's the Roadrunners maybe of UT San Antonio.
University of Texas San Antonio. So is that like IU coming up and playing like IUSB? I
think it's a little bigger than that. I think
I know, but are they a satellite school of Texas? Are they playing their own
That's a good point. I think they are actually. Yeah.
It just cracks me up. How is that even a thing? Whatever.
Okay, so they're 3-0 after San Antonio, and then Louisiana Monroe is the next home game.
Yes, another win.
4-0.
Yep.
Mississippi State. Any reason to think that they'll lose to the Bulldogs?
No, there's no reason that I think they should lose to the Bulldogs. I think that's another W. I think, Mississippi State can never quite seem to figure it all out. They have some upsets here and there, but as a whole, they can't seem to figure it out. So I don't think they're going to be able to defeat a juggernaut like Texas.
I don't either. So the Longhorns with a 5-0 start, and now they're rolling. They're going to get into SEC play for the first time. Interestingly, though, their first ever SEC game is going to be an old Big 12 matchup. Their big rival, Oklahoma.
Well, Mississippi State's an SEC game.
Oh, that's true. I'm not. What was I thinking?
I don't know, but that's okay.
No, you're right. You're right. I don't even know what I was thinking by saying that.
That was good.
That was just stupid, is what it was. So
they sound like me trying to retrace your steps after saying something dumb. Like that's me. That's my job. That's my role.
Right.
I think they still beat Oklahoma. I am not sold on Oklahoma's head coach. I'm not sold on him as a head coach at all. And so I think Texas being who I think they are, top 5 team, I think they beat Oklahoma.
I concur. So now we've got Texas at 6-0, and they get to host Georgia for game number 7.
Yeah, this will be, my guess is both teams will be undefeated coming into this game, and it's middle of the season. This will be a massive game across the country, right? Texas, Georgia, people will be saying it's a playoff preview, all these different things, which I agree with, by the way. But I think Georgia gets Texas in this particular matchup.
I do as well. I think the Longhorns suffer their first loss of the season when they host the Bulldogs. And that's actually, like, looking at it as I actually should have, they actually start off their SEC life with 3 consecutive SEC home games. Mississippi State. It's impressive. I guess Oklahoma's not at home. I keep butchering that. Oklahoma keeps throwing me because that'll be in Dallas. That'll be in Dallas where they always play it. So
sure, that makes sense. So it's a neutral site, technically.
Red River. Yep,
that's technically. Right.
So Georgia gives them their first loss. Then they go to Vanderbilt. Clark Lee, can he get it done?
Fighting Clark Lee's will not get it done. And in my viewing of the Athlon magazine that just came out, which is a good read, by the way. But coaches on the hot seat, Clark Lee made that list. So this loss will not help him in that front.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, like when Clark Lee made that move to Vanderbilt, everybody knew it was going to be an uphill battle for him. And
I mean, he's doing what he can. I know. But Vanderbilt in the SEC, it's like they really would love their life, I think. Outside of the check that they get cut, they just fit better elsewhere, I would say.
Exactly. So Texas is 7-1 after a probable beatdown of Vanderbilt in game number 8. Then they host Florida.
Could be another really good game, potentially. I'm just not sold on Florida yet. They're not at the caliber of Texas, so I will take Texas.
Yeah, I think Billy Napier is I don't know if he was on the hot seat in that Athlon list, but he might be reeling a little bit by this stage of the season when you get to the last 4 or 5 games of the season there. And
that's true.
I think Texas isn't going to do him any favors. I think the Longhorns pull out with a win over the Gators, and then they go to Arkansas, an old Southwestern Conference rival.
The SWAC.
Yeah.
I mean, the Sioux Pigs, I don't think are going to be able to get it done, even though it's at Arkansas. And that could be a trap game for sure for Texas. Because
I think it could be. Yeah.
They haven't been to Arkansas, I'm guessing, in quite a while. And Arkansas is a kind of a dark horse team in the SEC. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but I think they could maybe make some noise. You know what I mean? I think they can get an upset here or there and kind of hurt some people's seasons, that kind of stuff. So I do kind of feel like this is a bit of a toss-up game since it's at Arkansas, but I still, on paper, I got to give it to Texas.
I feel like sitting here in June, it's going to be, especially when like you're on a stretch, you're going on the road now. Yep. I think this will be a very close game. I think it'll be very close and very competitive going into Fayetteville, but I do think Texas ends up winning, so they'll be 9-1 coming out of that with 2 games to go. Kentucky is the 11th game of the season.
Yeah, and Kentucky has played spoiler in the past. I think at this point their season will be in rough shape, and I just don't think they've got the firepower to go up against Texas, so I will take Texas at home in their final home game of the season.
I will as well. So now the Longhorns are 10-1, and they're in good shape. For all the West Coast guys predicting 5 SEC teams in the college football playoff, Texas is feeling pretty good about getting back to the playoff. They finish off with their rival a team that they haven't played since Texas A&M joined the SEC a dozen years ago at Texas A&M, the Longhorns and the Aggies to close out the regular season.
This is the tough one because I think this is going to be a very different Texas A&M team in game 12 than it will be in game 1 when Notre Dame sees them, right? And I think Mike Elko is a really good coach. And I think he'll be able to fix some of the problems that A&M is going to inevitably have in week 1 when they play against Notre Dame. I think there's going to be a lot of praise going on for Texas going into this game. I think there's going to be a lot of, playoff projections and, all of these different things. I'm going to call for the upset. I'm going to say that A&M wins this game at home, although it's definitely an upset. Like, I still think Texas will probably win, but I'm going to call for the upset because I just don't want to chalk it. I just don't want to chalk it this entire way. So I'll call for the upset here.
Yeah, I mean, really the only quote-unquote upset that I would feel really comfortable with is Oklahoma, just because of the competitiveness of that series over the years. And, like you, I'm not completely sold on Brent Venables and just where they are and everything else. But I think, he should be able to give them maybe a little bit of a fit defensively, just like what you're talking about. Texas A&M should as well. When I look at Texas A&M right now, between their quarterback situation and their offense, I think that defensively they'll be able to limit Texas, but I just don't think that A&M is going to have enough offense this year.
That's fair.
To beat an elite team like this. So I'm going to go with the Longhorns.
And that's probably what will occur. The only thing I think will potentially play into the favor of Texas A&M is I could see Texas overlooking Texas A&M. It's the end of the season. It's the last game. They're not playing at home anymore.
Yeah.
People are going to have them projected going to the Final Four potentially if they're 10-1 going into this game. Like, I could see that, especially if A&M is like 500, you know what I mean? Or maybe, I don't know, 6-5 going into this game, whatever the case may be. I feel like they could look past Texas A&M, and that would be, in my opinion, that would be a mistake going into Texas A&M in their final game of the season, because I feel like Texas A&M is just going to be playing for pride, and they're going to want to beat Texas like so badly. They're going to want to beat Texas more than Texas is going to want to beat A&M.
Kind of like beating LSU at the end of the year.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. It's exactly correct. And so Sarkisian's going to have to do a really good job of keeping that Texas team focused on Texas A&M and not looking past that game. Again, I think Texas will probably win. I'm just saying I'm going to call for the upset here because I think there's the possibility. This has got trap game written all over it for Texas.
Brent wants to know when we're going to break down Notre Dame's 24 schedule.
All summer.
We've got some time on that one, but I think we will definitely have to dedicate a whole show to it. But we also want to obviously be able to do some research and talk with some facts on each of the opponents as we do it. So we've got time. We've got time on our side for that one.
Yes.
Jack dropped a question in that I'll plop up here for rapid fire. Women's basketball, which player is the biggest X factor for the success of the team in 24-25? I mean, this is so interesting because as loaded as they're going to be, it's like, how do you pick an X factor? Because you're kind of saying, a little bit below the radar, maybe. And I mean, like, they've got 6 different players on the roster who have earned all conference in their career, and that includes the 2 incoming players, Liza Carlin from Marquette and Leah King from Pitt, and then you've got Maddie Westbeld, you got Olivia Miles coming back, you got Sonia Citron, you got Hannah Hidalgo. Obviously, I'll just say King, the Pitt transfer, will be my X factor. And she was first team All ACC. She averaged the double-double last year, but I think that she'll really be able to hurt some teams because of all the other players that you've got to focus on with the shooters they're going to have on this team between, again, Miles and Hidalgo and Westbeld and Citron. It's just the floor is going to be so loaded. And really, King's big thing is just go out there and grab us 10 rebounds per game.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that she's going to have the ability to really hurt some teams otherwise, because of the fact that maybe she can kind of get lost a little bit with all those scores that they've got there on the floor.
Yep. Completely agree.
That's
a good one. I like that one a lot.
Want to go ahead and put this up here. Irish for Life says he's asking for prayers and he's panicking real bad right now with some medical issues. He says he's not sure what to say, terrified at the moment. Please pray. Sounds very, very serious. And I hope that I'm not knowing any more details. Just everyone throw him some prayers. And obviously we hope that things turn around. And,
yeah, for sure.
Hopefully things go well, and glad that you're here. Maybe we can kind of help take your mind off some of that stuff a little bit. I don't know if that helps or not. Today, Vince, you're a big Cubs fan. Today is the actual anniversary of the Chicago Cubs Atlanta Braves game at Wrigley Field, June 5th, 1985. What's the significance? That is the game that was the actual game that they used in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You remember, like, when the principal is walking around, Mr. Rooney. That's right. The game that was on TV, and you remember there was a ball that was fouled off. Claudel Washington fouled the ball off. What's interesting about this game is the game that they used on TV and the scene where they're actually sitting in the stands were not the same game. Apparently, the one at the stands where they're actually in the stands and you see them get the foul ball wasn't until September. But the game that they actually depicted with Harry Carey doing the play-by-play and everything else was 39 years ago today.
Wow.
A guy, now I saw this morning come up. Somebody posted a story about this. A guy recently sold actual ticket stubs for the game for $1,000 each. Would you pay that much for a ticket stub to anything?
Not a chance. There is no chance a ticket stub to any event of all time. Like, they could have sold tickets to the birth of Jesus, and I wouldn't pay $1,000 for that ticket stub. Like, there's no way. There's no chance I would use that kind of money on a ticket stub.
And not for a ticket stub. I mean, unless
you don't even get to go to the event,
right?
No way,
right? Because I'm trying to, like, you went to the World Series. Did you actually get a stock ticket stub?
It was a print off because everything's digital, of course.
Right, exactly.
So it's a printed off ticket, and then I bought one of the lanyards that you shove the ticket in. It's got like the lanyard neck thing, and it's hanging in my office at school. So I did that because I knew I wanted to display it. You know what I mean? But I mean, it's still just a printed off deal. It was not an actual ticket stub.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I would not either. Like, there's like a lot of other things that I could spend $1,000 on, and a ticket stub for a game that I didn't even go to would not be one of them. So
no way, man. Especially I realize it ended up being a real game, but it's not even a significant game in sports history.
Right.
It's a TV game.
Right. And apparently it wasn't until 2011, someone actually sat down and like watched the movie and the things that happened. Again, Claudel Washington from the Braves fouled the pitch off. And so, they were trying, someone actually went back, narrowed it down, figured all this stuff out. Some guy, the guy who sold the ticket stubs for $1,000 each, he had bought like 20,000 old ticket stubs from some guy. And this game had a few of them in there, and he sold the stubs for $1,000 each. He made a $6,000 profit by selling ticket stubs to that game, completely inconsequential game, but it happened to be featured in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
That's crazy all by itself.
I know.
Of all, I mean, good for him. What great RTI, right? Return on ROI, return on investment. Like,
there you go.
Good for him. I know.
It's good.
Whoever paid that just has to be like wiping their butt with money. Like, foolish, I can't even imagine having that kind of money just like laying around. Like, $1,000 for an old ticket stub. It's all yours. Crazy.
Have you ever played hooky to go to a sporting event?
Yes. Senior skip day. Okay. We hopped the L train and we went to a Cubs game.
Nice.
So
I
mean,
I was wondering if that ever happened in your life. That's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool trip.
Yeah. Oh, it was. Well, and you know what the funny thing is, because senior skip day is like an understood day that everybody is not there. Well, I went to a Catholic high school. And they kind of had like a week's worth of events kind of like planned. And it was going to be like there was a service day and there was a this and that. Well, at the last minute, they decided because of the weather, they changed the service day to the day of senior skip day. And then senior skip day was now the service day. We already had the tickets.
So you're
I went to the principal and I was like, look, we're going to the Cubs game.
We made plans.
And they're like, okay, you can come in on senior skip day then and just do some service around the school. We just hung out in the library all day.
Nice.
But we came in when there was no other seniors in the building and we skipped service day and went to Chicago. So it's like, am I really skipping? Maybe, but that's the best I've got for you.
I love it. I would have had to have driven 3.5 hours to go to Kansas City to try to skip out for anything. So never happened for me. Never happened. Although actually, I guess I did. I had a girlfriend who was a diver, and I did skip out on school because they went a couple hours away for a meet in the middle of the day or something like that. So I guess I did technically skip out for that, but not big time sporting event.
There are rumors, and they're just rumors at the moment, but there have been tickets purchased to a Cubs Tigers game. It's the second day of school in the fall. So there's a chance that I'll be skipping the second day of school to go to a game. I don't know how my boss is going to feel about that, but we'll see.
Do you buy or sell Ferris Bueller's Day Off as Matthew Broderick's best movie?
I was trying to, off the top of my head, without Googling or anything else, coming up with other Matthew Broderick movies.
It's pretty tough, actually.
It is very tough. I thought that, now I can't even remember the name. The Producers. Obviously, that's based on a musical or whatever. I thought that was really good. It's a comedy. I thought it was funny. Doesn't hold a candle, though, to Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I mean, unless I'm missing something, it's Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
I think Ferris Bueller's Day Off is number one. I don't think I ever saw The Producers, actually. I know what the movie's about and everything. Sure. And they actually depicted it in a season of Curb Your Enthusiasm, actually.
Oh, did they really?
Back where Larry David was in The Producers.
It's funny.
And Matthew Broderick made his way in there and stuff.
I mean, they basically want to tank a musical, and so they make a musical about Hitler, and it ends up being popular. And it's so everything backfires. Andre's got a good one.
I forgot about Glory. Completely forgot about Glory. I was racking my brain. That's a pretty good one.
And see, I didn't Google it. But Glory is one of my all-time favorite movies. That is true.
Andrew says cable guy. You're
pass.
Either hardcore cable guy or you're out on cable guy. That was just out. Too weird for me. I'm way out on that one.
I'm out.
This would be, I think Ferris is number one. This is my number two that Brian NY says War Games. Very
interesting.
Have you ever seen
No.
This is the computer system and stuff is very dated, but it's basically, Matthew Broderick, and I can't remember if it was actually his girlfriend or just a girl he was friends with. They almost inadvertently start a thermonuclear war, by screwing around on the computer, playing a game on the computer. There's a launch that's a launch countdown that gets going. And he kind of has to help prevent the thermonuclear war from happening ultimately after almost starting it. But that was a couple years before Ferris Bueller. Still a very good one.
Okay.
But I've got to put Ferris Bueller at the top of the list. Yep, you're right, Brian. Ali Sheedy was the girlfriend or the girl or the friend or whatever exactly she was.
I have now officially Googled Matthew Broderick's catalog.
Uh-huh.
And I still hold tight to the fact that Ferris Bueller's number one. Glory, for me, would be number two. And then I would also agree that Lion King would come in at number three. Based on
what did he do in Lion King? I
guess he was the voice of Simba, adult Simba.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah. So you had Jonathan Taylor Thomas was child Simba, and then Matthew Broderick was adult Simba.
Okay.
So,
what about Ferris Bueller in terms of high school 80s movies? Where do you put Ferris Bueller with the high school 80s movies?
So I know there are a lot of really good 80s, like high school type movies. Fast Times at Ridgemont High, I believe, was in the 80s. Breakfast Club was in the 80s.
Yep, another good one.
For me, it's Ferris Bueller. I'm a big fan of Ferris Bueller, and I have rediscovered Ferris Bueller over the last couple of years when I found out that Mr. Rooney was actually the dean of students, which is my job now. So it made it even funnier to me because I could kind of relate to some of the stuff that goes on. Now, granted, it's a comedy, obviously, but it's Ferris Bueller, and it's not all that, like 16 Candles, like all of those different things. Those didn't really resonate with me. You're a few years older than me, so those more
resonated. Like I remember
with you.
seeing all these movies at the theater, basically.
Right, when you were in high school, or
exactly.
Yeah.
I would go Fast Times.
Okay.
I would go Ferris Bueller. Now, I've probably seen Ferris Bueller more often, but I just actually watched Fast Times again. I would put Fast Times at the top. I would put Ferris Bueller number 2. And then Breakfast Club, 16 Candles. I would put both of them right afterwards.
Andrew this is a good one from Andrew, though. He says, is Back to the Future in this category?
That's a good question. I mean, he was in high school and he did go back to high school too.
Yeah. If that's the case, Back to the Future just leapt Ferris Bueller for me. If we're putting it in the category, and I think we have to.
Michael says Airplane. Michael, that's the best joke you've ever told on this show.
That's great.
What about St. Elmo's Fire, says Brent? Well, they were in college in St. Elmo. They were actually finishing up college.
Never saw that one.
You can't include that for high school. Andre says, I'm not that old. I don't know what you mean by that, but you can't tell me that every morning. So I definitely feel that old. But yeah, Back to the Future. I didn't think about it.
I didn't think about that either.
It's a high school movie, but I think you've got to. I mean, he goes back to high school. The
first one is pretty much set in high school. Now, it's not his it is his high school, but 30 years prior. So, I mean, the whole thing's set in high school. You got the dance, you got all that. So I think it is.
I'd still put it number 4, I think.
Okay.
I would put Breakfast Club in front of it. Then I'd put Back to the Future, and then I'd go 16 Candles after that.
Fair enough. It's number 1 for me, and then Ferris is 2. So, and then the rest are all kind of together for me towards the bottom, then that slot.
Got to be sure and get this DK super chat in here. Thank you very much, DK. He says, can you break down the fullback recruiting in 25 and 26?
DK.
I don't know where exactly that came from.
Thanks for the super chat, DK.
Yes.
But come on, dude.
Appreciate it.
He obviously is telling a joke there, but
So this one's for you from Ryan. Would you rather room with Brian Kelly for a year in a 1-bedroom apartment, or Dylan goes to Michigan and you have to start the Wolverine Breakdown podcast? That's legit.
It is a legit question, but it's an easy answer. It would be the second one. I do not have any desire to live with Brian Kelly in a 1-bedroom apartment. It's funny.
The Odd Couple.
Yes. When you and I went up to Michigan for a game, and this was back when Jesse was in high school, and he was kind of a fullback linebacker, and we were joking around about him walking on at Michigan to be a fullback. Do you remember that conversation or that topic?
Vaguely, but yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, well, I'm going to have to learn how to root for Michigan if Jesse is on the team. You know what I mean? And so I had already kind of started that thought process. And look, I hate Michigan. There's no two ways about it, but it's a very good school. It's a very good academic school. And so if my kid ended up getting a degree from Michigan, it would hurt my heart, but I know that he would be very successful, after that. But if he's getting recruited by Michigan, he damn well better be getting recruited by Notre Dame. That's how I would kind of spin it. But
fair.
I would, of course, root for my son and do the whole Michigan thing if I had to.
Yep. Got some late high school movie suggestions. Pretty in Pink. That was like, I remember like Ducky is the thing that stands out the most from that one. John Cryer, the guy that ended up on 2.5 Men. You've never seen Pretty in Pink? That was another Molly Ringwald movie.
She never did anything for me. I was never a huge fan of Molly Ringwald.
I was never, like,
weird. I don't know. Maybe that's
Molly Ringwald was a thing back then.
Growing up in the 80s. I don't know, but
yeah. I mean, so it was a solid movie. Big hit at the time. Another one that I remember seeing, but I think that was like, I think that felt like the ladies like Pretty in Pink. Like a little bit more than like 16 Candles had enough. Like there was a lot of what's his name? Anthony Michael Hall in 16 Candles.
Yes, there was.
A lot of good comedy in there. Weird Science, another good one. I forgot about that one. But
I remember Weird Science for obvious reasons. I mean, it definitely had some good qualities to it.
I think about Weird Science less for like anything related to high school as opposed to just two dorky kids hanging out with a hot lady, right?
The casting was awesome.
All right. Well, I think we will end it with that. Another good show. A lot of good questions in there tonight. I'm glad that we could spark some memories with the 80s high school.
It's good stuff.
Comedies. It's We In, We Out Day tomorrow. So don't forget, get over to the Champions Lounge and get your We In, We Out questions for tomorrow's show. We will be answering there. Coffees for closers. Yes, the Breakfast Club was on my list. We didn't go into detail about it, but
that
Breakfast Club, I think I had it like third maybe on my list.
Yeah, it was in that neighborhood. Like that. I think it was on the medal stand.
Yes, that's right. All right, well, that's going to do it. Hit that like button before you leave. We do appreciate you as always, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.